For decades, there was a clear formula for becoming a global musician. You release an album, you appear in morning television, late night shows, do magazines, you repeat the cycle every comeback. Traditional media was the bridge between the artist and the public. And when BTS actually first entered the American market, they followed the same practice. And that helped tremendously. It introduced BTS to audiences who had never heard of them before. But then things changed for everybody. COVID-19 forced celebrities into their homes. Television studios shut down. Promotions were canceled and stripped away much of the glamour that had traditionally surrounded fame. Audiences were suddenly watching actors from their kitchens and musicians performing in their own living rooms. And there were so many creators just directly spoke to webcams instead of polished television sets. And now people are actually spending 2 to 3 hours watching podcasts, live streams, gaming broadcasts, and they are okay, totally okay with creators simply talking to a camera. And BTS happened to be unusually well positioned for that transition because long before the pandemic, they had already been building direct lines of communication with ARMY through live streams. And in this era for Arirang, BTS significantly streamlined many of their public exposure. They became more selective with interviews and appearances, but one thing never became less frequent, and that is their conversations with fans through their live streams. Now, these live streams are an entirely different model of celebrity communication. It does not replace interviews with Rolling Stone and Spotify, but many fans actually find it even better. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. What is the role of these live streams that BTS are doing, how it's actually changing the communication or the relationship of artists and fans, but more importantly, how can Big Hit and BTS really improve this for their own benefit? Let's get to it. I'm not saying that interviews with professional journalists are useless. There's still value in talking with journalists who know how to ask thoughtful questions. I still love the interview that they did with Rolling Stone. I think it's one of their best, but time and space are unavoidable limitations. Most television interviews are bound by time limits, and magazine profiles have to be condensed to a specific number of pages. And artists don't get to impose what kind of narratives they want, which talking points will be prioritized. And of course, journalists naturally have their own publication style or and they know their audience and they want to deliver what they are expecting. But live stream remove nearly all of those limitations. One of the clearest examples came during the release of Arirang. RM actually went live instead of just relying on a Rolling Stone or whoever to tell the story. He did it himself. He walked fans through each track one by one, not only discussing the meaning behind the lyrics, but also explaining how the songs came together. He talked about when certain tracks were written, who participated in the process, the idea that inspired particular lines, and even offered glimpses into the conversations happening inside Big Hit Music's A&R and and even amongst themselves how they were making decisions on which songs ultimately deserved a place in the record. Compare that to the best traditional interviews, there's just absolutely no contest. In many ways, BTS have replaced the function interviews used to serve. Instead of asking a magazine to explain their creative process, they're just doing it themselves. They're inviting their fans to come into the conversation. And I think in doing so, they've rendered one of traditional media's most valuable roles far less essential. One of the biggest criticisms surrounding K-pop has always been the parasocial nature of idol culture. Fans become emotionally invested to the artists, and there's truth to that. But I think BTS have gradually built something different. They built their relationship on their creative lives, not on private lives. When BTS go live, they usually talk about their art, not their personal family matters or other things. They spend an incredible amount of time talking about music and professional projects. They create intimacy, sure, but it is artistic intimacy. It's not to say that it's all serious talk. We've seen them play games online, they build Lego sets or talk through some philosophical things about life in general. They work out. They know how to be spontaneous, but they set very clear boundaries that transform the relationship. So rather than encouraging fans to become emotionally attached to an imagined version of the members' private lives, BTS continuously redirect attention back towards their work itself. And ironically, I think that often creates a deeper connection. I think we've forgotten that art has always been one of the purest ways to understand another person. Long before social media, people connected with authors through novels, filmmakers through cinema, and painters through their canvases. BTS have expanded that same principle into the live stream era. Every new artistic discussion gives Army another layer to revisit. Songs become richer because we understand the conversation that happened before the recording began. Lyrics gain additional weight because the audience understand what the writers were wrestling with when they were writing it. Even disagreements during production become fascinating because they reveal seven artists negotiate different perspectives before arriving at a finished piece of music. Perhaps that's actually one of the least appreciated aspects of BTS live stream culture. BTS managed to satisfy one of internet's biggest demands, constant connection, without making their private lives the product. People say they crave authenticity. Brands and artists are supposed to be authentic. I'm not entirely convinced that that's the right word. I think it is often misunderstood. The truth is, none of us are completely authentic all the time. We all present different versions of ourselves depending on where we are. The person that you are at work isn't exactly the same person you are with your closest friends. And that is not deception. That's just how human beings function in society. And celebrities are no different. Expecting someone to become completely authentic the moment they turn on the camera, that's not realistic, nor should it be. I think every public figure has boundaries, responsibilities, and aspects of their life they choose to keep private. I think what they actually are responding to is spontaneity. A traditional television interview is built around structure. Questions are prepared beforehand, time is carefully managed, topics are selected, answers are edited. But dinner doesn't work like that. Neither do BTS live streams. Someone suddenly remembers a funny story, a member interrupts to tease another, the conversation shifts from music to food to gaming, then somehow ends up talking about military life or creative burnout. And that's how most of us actually experience conversations or dinners or gatherings. That spontaneity makes the experience more human. BTS has redefined what it means to be vulnerable as public figures because traditionally celebrity vulnerability that meant revealing deeply personal aspects of one's life. It might involve discussing relationships or family issues, mental health struggles. And those conversations, of course, they have value. They also, however, blur the line between artist and the individual. But BTS has taken a different approach. Rather than opening every door into their private lives, they open the door to their creative lives. One of the earliest examples came during 2022 Festa dinner when the members openly admitted that they had reached a point where they felt creatively exhausted. They said that they were losing direction, they were struggling to figure out what BTS should sound like moving forward, and they started questioning where they actually wanted to go as artists. So for many fans, it was actually an emotional conversation because they admitted something many creative people understand very, very well. And that is that sometimes you just don't know what comes next. I think that honesty changes how fans experience their art. Instead of imagining masterpieces appearing magically fully formed, audiences actually begin to appreciate the countless decisions, the revisions, the mistakes, the frustrations. Even the members' recent conversations about touring have reflected that same philosophy. V posted a note on Weverse asking fans not to reveal their location and not to come to their hotel. And he said that one of the greatest joys of touring for him is being able to experience each country. He tries local restaurants, walk through the streets, he enjoys the place. And he also acknowledged that constantly being followed, that affects the members' ability to rest, and ultimately it affects the quality of the performance that they give to their fans. He's not asking for privacy because he's a celebrity and he deserves special treatment. He was just explaining how respecting boundaries ultimately benefits the very thing that connects BTS and ARMY in the first place, the music and the performances. But again, notice what is actually happening. The members aren't inviting audiences deeper into their personal lives. They're actually drawing a very, very clear boundary. I do think they're doing it deliberately. They first operated within the expectation of the idol industry, and that means they're expected to be always energetic, available, polished, perfect. But the problem is that perfection is not sustainable, not for 5 years, not for 10, certainly not for 40 years. And they said that they want to keep on going for as long as they could. As artists grow older, their priorities naturally change. They may want to slow down between projects. Some may eventually settle down and start families, and others might just want to explore something that's really different. These changes become much harder to accept for fans if they continue to view artists through the lens of perpetual idolhood. And I think BTS understands that. Over the past several years, they've gradually shifted the conversation away from maintaining an image of perfection and toward embracing the realities of being an artist. And I think that may be one of the smartest long-term branding decision that they could make. If audiences become accustomed to seeing BTS as human beings rather than untouchable, perfect idols, then future changes won't feel like betrayals of an image that never, ever truly existed. I am not saying that the format is perfect. Even the members have occasionally expressed frustrations because all they see would be useless comments, spams, repetitive things, sometimes downright indecent or inappropriate comments. But to be fair, when you're broadcasting to millions of people, that's bound to happen. But I also think that's precisely why Big Hit and Weavers and Hybe actually have an opportunity to evolve it. One would be better moderation. The first improvement would be just to get a human moderator. AI can certainly help, of course, but I think context matters. A human moderator can distinguish between genuine criticism and humor and inside jokes and comments that are just actually harmful. I think a short delay of 15, 20, 30 seconds combined with human moderation can dramatically improve the experience without making the live stream feel artificial. The other would be rewarding good questions. One thing I've noticed is that BTS has always wanted audience participation. The problem is that good questions or suggestions or comments get buried beneath hundreds of thousands of comments appearing every minute. So imagine a separate section dedicated to curated questions. So comments can be first screened by AI, that's the initial filter, and then human moderator would be the final selection before appearing in a highlighted panel that the members can easily browse. That way, BTS wouldn't have to spend several minutes searching through thousands of endless, useless comments. The next is, I think membership could improve the quality of the conversation. Another possibility would be to just limit the ones that can comment to paid members. Everyone would be able to watch the live stream, but limit the ones that will comment to paid members. Is that going to eliminate spam? Definitely not. But I think it's going to reduce the volume of messages, useless messages, by at least half. Next is that they should turn Weavers into a creative ecosystem. A lot of the things that fans do after they actually migrate to YouTube, they snip or edit the highlights of the live stream and then they put it somewhere else. And I think that those are definitely helpful because they help in introducing BTS to a new audience. A 30-second clip in YouTube Shorts can become the first time someone encounters BTS and then they can search BTS, their music. So I think definitely Weverse and Big Hit should not discourage it. In fact, they should embrace it. But I think Weverse can become the central hub for curated fan creations, short clips, long form edits, essays, translations, video analysis. Creators should be able to submit their work to Weverse. And then when it gets approved and gets published, then they could receive proper credit, allowing the readers or the viewers to discover their YouTube channels or social media accounts or creative work. Big Hit would not have to pay for every submission. For many creators, simply having their work officially featured would be very, very meaningful. The fandom has already demonstrated that it is capable of doing remarkable work. Whether intentionally or not, I think BTS have begun establishing a model that artists across industry in the East and in the West will increasingly adopt. For decades, careers followed a familiar rhythm. You release a music, you promote, you go on tour, you disappear, and then you do it again 2 to 3 years, every 2 to 3 years. But today, audiences don't experience media the same way. People have grown accustomed to ongoing conversations rather than occasional appearances. But it doesn't have to mean that artists need to constantly reveal more of their private lives just to be able to provide something to their fans. If anything, I think BTS demonstrates the opposite. The conversation doesn't have to revolve around relationships or homes or vacations or personal drama. It could actually revolve around work, the music, and they have absolute control over the conversation. And I think over the past several years, BTS has invited millions of people into songwriting sessions and creative frustrations and production discussions through ordinary dinners or just spontaneous live streams. And I think that somehow evolved into reflections on music, life, and the future. I think in doing so, they've expanded the space where fans can actually connect with them without opening their personal lives. They remain artists and fans remain fans, but with a tighter bond based on art. Hi. Thank you for staying with me. Would love to hear your thoughts, so leave them in the comment section below. And as always, you can say whatever it is that you want to say. Just please do so respectfully. Please visit the online magazine. We have an online magazine, AsianEntertainmentAndCulture.com. We're trying to boost that so that we can feature more artists, more Asian work, and help them find their audience in the West. If you want to help in sustaining that, you can donate. The QR code should be on your screen right now. But I do short form content as well on X, IG, TikTok, Facebook, also YouTube Shorts. So if you want news type of content, please follow me there. But I do a members only live stream at least once a week. If you want to access that, you can be a member of YouTube or Patreon. That is it. Thank you so much. Please like the video, subscribe, and hit that notification button. But the most important thing is for you to share the video. The more the algorithm, the more the links to our videos are distributed, the more the algorithm is going to recommend us to new people. Thank you so much. Till next time.